Number 21. What do you think about Jordan Addison, who I know that the Los Angeles Chargers really like, and they should like Jordan Addison? I think it's pretty admirable. Jordan Addison catches 100 balls from at the University of Pittsburgh, in 2021.
Yeah.
Even goes to spring practice in 2022 at Pitt. Okay? And, Kenny Pickett's gone, but he still goes to spring practice. And then he realizes, oh, my God, this NIL money is insane, and I could play in a different offense and blah, 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 really help myself for the future. He goes out and has a really successful year at USC, totally different offense. There's a lot of people in the league right now who are big Jordan Addison fans. I don't know. Does it make sense to you to go Chargers at 21?
Yes, I think so, because look, you got a team that has a guy they love at quarterback in Justin Herbert, and you're implementing a new offense, thank goodness, with Kellen Moore, but you need a little bit more depth at receiver. They need to beef that up a little bit, especially with the injury issues that have sprung up with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. I think getting another high pick guy in there, another guy that Justin Herbert should be able to count on down in and down out, is something that's going to be great for that offense. You've got to be able to score points in that division. I mean, you got to try to beat Kansas City somehow, right? And I don't necessarily like building a team to try to beat one team, but you got to do it really when you're the Chargers and that team is in your division. You play them twice a year. So I like the Chargers adding somebody who can be dynamic on offense and has the experience of catching passes in college, like a Jordan Addison.
Myles, for a long time, my pick at 22, Baltimore, was a wide receiver, and I think very, very easily they could take a wide receiver right here. No question about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I switched on Sunday to Emmanuel Forbes, the cornerback from Mississippi State. The reason I changed is that I think that if Jordan Addison and Zay Flowers are gone, which is what I have in this draft, I think the Ravens might say, okay, we will get a receiver down the road, and this is a cornerback we love. And a lot of people will say, how can a 166-pound cornerback play in the NFL? And it's a good question. It's a valid question. I'll just say two things. My favorite factoid of all in this draft is that Emmanuel Forbes in high school, his idol was Pedro Martinez, okay, the pitcher. And you say, well, geez, why was Pedro his idol? Two reasons. Big Red Sox fan, and he threw in the low 90s as a high school pitcher before blowing out his elbow and giving up baseball. And so then, and that turned out to be good for his football career, because in high school, his last 3 years in high school, he had 16 interceptions. His 3 years at Mississippi State, he had 14 interceptions, 6 of them pick sixes, which is an NCAA record. And so I think the Ravens love his play speed, his fearlessness. I'm totally fascinated by Emmanuel Forbes. And I'll just say one last thing. Emmanuel Forbes, I asked a lot of people about several people who were on the cusp of low one, second round, whatever. And 7 of 8 people I asked said Emmanuel Forbes would be a second round pick. And I don't know. I'm sure this is their business, so they know where the guy's going to be drafted. I kind of like Emmanuel Forbes at 22. Does it seem to be too much of a risk to you?
Not necessarily, because, we talk about teams that have the infrastructure, right? And we were talking about that with Seattle. But I think when you're talking about Baltimore, they have the system. They know what they do. They do what they do, and they do it well, as a coach once said to me like many years ago. But that's just what Baltimore is. So Baltimore knows exactly the kind of players that they want in their system. And so if they believe that Forbes can be a player that can excel with their defense, then I would kind of defer to them. And I'm like, all right, well, I believe you. and I think it'll work. That's kind of the way I feel about what Baltimore does generally.
Number 23, Minnesota, Anthony Richardson, quarterback, Florida. Look,
finally,
I like Kirk Cousins. I think everybody believes that Kirk Cousins is a good to very good NFL quarterback. He's played 5 years in Minnesota. They've won one
Ask
playoff
Mike Florio
game.
that.
Yeah, they played 5 years. He's played 5 years, won one playoff game, and at the end of this year, when they have to sign him to a new contract, do you want to invest $48 million a year in Kirk Cousins or whatever the number is? And this is not inside information from Kevin O'Connell or people inside the Minnesota Vikings. This is my gut feeling that if Anthony Richardson is sitting there at 23, it's going to be tempting, and I am giving them Anthony Richardson.
I think that makes sense. Defense also is a place where they just need to get better. I think Brian Flores being the coach certainly elevates them. Just like Vic Fangio going down to Miami elevates them just to a certain extent. But if you are trying to build a team that is going to be sustainable, quarterback is the most important position, right? And if that's somebody that they believe in and he happens to be there on the board at 23, then I think that they could definitely do that.
Yeah. Number 24, Jacksonville, Lukas Van Ness, edge player, Iowa. This is maybe the weirdest stat of every stat for this NFL draft. Career starts at Iowa for Lukas Van Ness, 0. And the way that Iowa played it is that they would start and play the first few snaps, the upperclassmen who had, in the eyes of the coaching staff, earned it. And yet, Lukas Van Ness might start in the NFL, could never start at Iowa. It would be a funny story. New York Giants, Michael Mayer. In the early hours of posting, this is the pick that seemed to enrage a fan base the most, because Michael Mayer, my point is, or the fans' point is, what are you talking about? Daniel Bellinger had a good rookie year last year, a young tight end, and they just traded for Darren Waller, traded a third-round pick. Why would they take a tight end? Look, Darren Waller enters his age 31 year this year. He's been injury-prone the last few years. And I'm not sure how long Darren Waller is going to be a member of the New York Giants. So this is a pick about the future. And again, I'm not saying it'll happen. I really think the Giants would prefer a corner, maybe Joey Porter Jr., or a wide receiver, but I'm giving them Michael Mayer. Dallas, Joey Porter Jr., the cornerback from Penn State. The reason why Dallas wants to get secondary help is that they realize, especially if they're going to beat Philadelphia, they have to be competitive on the edges of the field right now. And they've got to be able to outscore Philadelphia, but they've also got to be able to have 3 or 4 3-and-outs a game. I think they feel like a corner really helps them here. Number 27. This might be my most surprising pick, and it's a dart throw, but I know that the Buffalo Bills really like Josh Downs, wide receiver, smallish wide receiver from University of North Carolina. And here's a guy who averaged over his last couple of years at North Carolina, 8 catches, 98 receiving yards a game. One GM said this guy gets open in any coverage. And I think that's something that really would appeal. Obviously, it appealed to any team. But by the end of last year, the Buffalo Bills had run out of answers in their offensive attack. So this gives them one more opportunity to help Josh Allen be better. Let's wind down. I got Luke Musgrave going to Cincinnati. He's a tight end from Oregon State. probably the biggest star of this postseason at the tight end position, because he's really, he was hurt a lot in college. And I think that by people loving Luke Musgrave in the scouting process, if somebody picks him in this round and it doesn't work out, it'll be a classic case of, hey, watch the film and watch how he played. Don't look at him in a bowl game or an all-star game and at the combine. So number 29, I've got New Orleans going Myles Murphy, defensive end, Clemson. I really wanted to get Myles Murphy in the first round, and I wanted to get him in a place. Look, the New Orleans Saints have been pillaged in free agency along the defensive front. They need youth that can step in and play right away, and that's really why I gave Myles Murphy. Philadelphia, Jahmyr Gibbs with pick number 30, the running back from Alabama. The interesting thing about Jahmyr Gibbs is I talked to two teams that like Jahmyr Gibbs better than Bijan Robinson. Love him in the receiving game, and for as much as I really wanted to put Bijan Robinson with the Philadelphia Eagles, at the end of the day, I give him Jahmyr Gibbs with pick number 30. Kansas City, look, sometimes you make picks because you want to get a player in the round. I didn't feel great about any person, any individual in Kansas City was going to give them my next wide receiver, maybe Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee, who's got some speed, field stretching ability. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was Jalen Hyatt, but I wanted to get Osiris Torrance in the round because I think he's going to be a first-round pick. And Andy Reid never met a beefy offensive or defensive lineman that he didn't like. Myles, there we go, 1 to 31. I'm going to put you on the spot. Give me one pick that I just gave you that you feel really good about, and give me one pick that you think that is totally nonsensical. Peter forgot his coffee last night at 10:30.
I'll start with the second one. I don't think Anthony Richardson is lasting to 23 on the board. I think that if he gets to the teens, somebody's going to trade up for him just based on what the ability is. And yeah, he doesn't have as many, career starts that you would probably like to have, but I just think that somebody's going to get him before he gets to 23. I do like the Will Levis pick to the Colts. I think that makes sense based on what we know about them and that organization. And the Bryce Young pick, number 1 overall. I think you did a good job on that one.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.